Hi, this is Bill, and this is going to be a box opening and initial thoughts on the Firelap TG-04C radio system. This is a 2.4 gigahertz radio transmitter that I ordered off of eBay. This is the actual box and the bag that it was delivered in. And I had already opened up the box contents and examined the instructions and went through all the details and did some basic fundamental tests, so that way I can share that information with you on this video. But please forgive me, as I might have some pauses as I go along through my notes. Try to keep everything that I've got, my thoughts, all in one clip here, rather than spreading everything out. But this is how the radio arrives, and it actually comes with a really cheap fold-out instruction. It's got Chinese instruction written on one side and English instruction written on the other. So really it's blown up into, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 18 pages, which are shrunk down into one large page here. So we'll go ahead and throw that off to the side for now. There are some inconsistencies in the instruction, and it's kind of hard to see, but I was very fortunate to get someone's hair left on the styrofoam there when they packaged it, so thank you very much. It's a hair imported from China, and this is how it comes. So what you've got here is the transmitter, which is quite bright and very different looking, and it appears as if the design is seems to be modeled after perhaps a Futaba style radio. It doesn't seem to be a direct copy of the mold that I can tell. It just seems inspired. There is an antenna that's also included. It does bend, but it looks like it also can be removed, which is kind of nice. I don't know of any other budget radio system on the market that has a removable antenna like that, so that's a huge plus. And the other interesting thing that I like about this system is that the receiver has an extremely short antenna that looks like it's, if maybe an inch, 2 inches long. I don't know of any other radio on the market that is this short of an antenna. There are really no markings or labels on the receiver itself, so it's kind of hard to identify what brand this is, or what this may or may not be compatible with another brand. I do believe it's pretty unique to itself. The reason why I say that is because this radio uses an FSK, or frequency shift key modulation, and it also includes a PPM pulse width control, which is kind of nice. This is a 3-channel radio system, and for a budget level radio system, this one actually includes a stopwatch timer, which is another feature that I've always wanted to have on a budget radio. Not too many budget radios have that out there. The only difference with this stopwatch is there's a button you press right here. It activates the stopwatch, and it always starts from 0, and it only goes in the upward direction. When you push the button to stop the stopwatch, the timer disappears. There is no reset or pause or countdown or any kind of alarm. All it does is you push the button to turn it on, it counts up, and then when you're done with it, you push the button and it just turns it off, simply. Let me go down my notes here a little quick. When you turn the radio on, there are no bind buttons. There's no bind button on the transmitter, and there's no bind button on the receiver. It automatically binds itself based on the sequence for when you first turn on the transmitter. So you have to be careful if there are other brands of this radio in the area. You want to make sure that when it's in the bind mode, or they're just learning its bind, to be careful that you're away from other cars. At least that's the way they explain in the directions. So one thing that I don't particularly care for, but this is the range that it's advertising in the specifications, is that both the transmitter and the receiver operate between 3.6 to 6.0 volts. Now, I'm not sure if it's possible, but I might consider trying this and possibly seeing if I can run the transmitter on a 1-cell LiPo, which falls within that range. So we'll see if the performance is there. Not really sure how it's going to work. It might affect the range. It is worth noting that in the submenu, the system menu, that you can set the power level of the transmitter from levels 1 through 5, so 5 being the strongest power. Now, I'm making an assumption here, and I'll have to do some testing to see, but it's possible that the battery might drain a little faster if you select it to a higher power output, which is good for signal strength, but you know, you might run the risk of draining the battery a little quicker. So that's something that I'm going to have to test and get back with you guys on that. One thing that I do like about the system is the battery tray. It uses four AA size cells. It is probably possible to put rechargeable batteries in there, but unfortunately there is no external charge port. However, the tray does remove rather easily, and there's a JST plug in there, so that way you can swap that out. Now, I might use that JST plug to possibly put in a 1-cell LiPo maybe, and try fitting that in there. That looks like that might be about the size of a 1-cell LiPo that goes into most typical race cars in the 13.5 two-wheel drive 112 scale class. So I'm not sure. I'll test fit that, and I'll provide updates. I will be posting a link on the description of this video later, and that will go into more detail on my findings and how I go through evaluating this radio system in the future. There is one thing, even though there isn't a charge adapter, there is a rubber port over here. In fact, I can pop that off so there's a hole there. I'm not sure if this is for some sort of possible USB port for firmware update or whatnot, or maybe this is just so that way I can run a cable up through here and maybe put a charge adapter up there. I don't know what that's for, but it doesn't really say in the instructions what that's there, but there is a potential upgrade feature there that I'm not aware of. Another thing that's worth noting is that on the grip here, it has a nice rubber finish. So everywhere you see it's black where my thumb is fitting, that's rubber along here, and there's also rubber along the front face. So it makes it easier to hold the radio, and it's less likely for it to slip. It feels rather comfortable in the hand. I mean, it still feels like a cheap radio. I mean, this for the price, you can't. It's hard to complain, but it feels pretty good. It's nice and comfortable ergo features in the hand. The trigger is really soft, so I don't really have to pull hard on the trigger at all, and the steering control is kind of a medium soft. It's not as soft as the trigger, but it's a nice. It doesn't feel too. There's other radios that I felt where you're struggling to turn the wheel, and it's just really hard to pull. This is more natural. The steering wheel is a little bit narrower than I'm used to. I mean, I'm used to feeling wheels that are a little bit larger in diameter. This one feels awfully narrow, and the foam grip is really narrow. The foam grip can be removed. It is so I might experiment with putting a larger foam grip on there to make it feel a little more comfortable. It just feels kind of dainty in my hand, but some people might like that, especially maybe for people with smaller hands. They might like that. So that's something to consider. You can actually reverse the steering wheel, so you can remove the screw here, pop this off, and put the features on the other side. Pull off this rubber boot here, so you can make this a lefty grip radio. Unfortunately, they don't provide instruction on how to do that. I have to assume it's intuitive enough, or there's probably some wires in there you just unplug and plug around, flip everything around. I'm assuming it's that simple. That otherwise, I mean, I'd just be shocked at why they wouldn't include it in the instructions is beyond me. Another nice ergonomic feature is there's a little lanyard clip here. So you can put a little lanyard for perhaps like a neck strap. Makes it easier for the radio to hold in your hands, or maybe if you want to loan the radio to a child to run, you're afraid they might drop it, you might want to have them put a little neck strap on and hook it up to that to the lanyard clip there. That's a kind of a nice feature to have there. And bear with me while I'm going down my notes here. There are no adjustable spring rates on either the steering or the throttle, so the spring is what you've got. But for me, it feels comfortable enough. Another thing that I want to point out, I'm going to go ahead and turn this radio on so that way you guys can see. The way it works is you have to hold this button down for a brief moment, and then it'll actually turn the radio on. Hopefully this will come up on the screen and the glare isn't too bad. I can see I'm going to have to turn off my backlight. See if that helps a little bit. And unfortunately, I may have to turn off all my lights here. Let's turn off this other light here. Okay, so what we've got here is, no, you're going to have to trust me. The language is set to Chinese by default, and in order to get into the English menu, I don't know if you can see all the Chinese lettering there, you have to navigate into the center button on the screen, and then you see all the Chinese lettering onto the right there. Then what you need to do is you have to intuitively go all the way down to the bottom, I think it's the bottom right, or maybe it's the next one up. Yeah, I think it's the bottom right menu. And it's not super easy, but then you'll get to the sub menu here where you see 1024, 2056 and whatnot. Then you have to go down to the menu on the very bottom there where there's two funny looking Chinese symbols, and you go to the right and it's switched over to English. So then I say OK, and it saves it, and then I can back out. And then I come back, and now you can see everything is back in the English mode. I'm going to go ahead and turn the lights back on so that way I can see what I'm doing here. And as you might notice is that the screen is actually blue with white lettering. There's some red dots in there for options, and there are no other options. That's all you get. That's the only colors you get to choose from. And you do have the ability to adjust the brightness control. You have low, medium, high, and a few other settings. I'll go to the remaining settings here in a minute. The resolution is set to 10-bit by default, 1024, and you can't adjust that down to 256. I'm not even sure why they even had 256 as an option to change to, but I'm just going to keep it at the 10-bit setting, which is pretty standard for most like FlySky radios on the market. Most other budget radios, they're all going to be right around that 10-bit rate. They advertised that this was going to be a 3 millisecond radio. I'm not sure if that's a typo and they meant 3 ms for something else. I plugged in a PPM monitor into this radio, and I was testing at 60 hertz, which calculates out to 16.7 milliseconds. So this is basically right on par with the frame rates for most of your other budget radios on the market. Certainly not below par, but I'd say it's right at par for the average radio systems. And another thing that I did find out with my PPM monitor is I tested the centering on it. So I turned the steering from right, left, and tested to see if it would come back to the dead center. Every single time, it was spot on to the center rate of the rating. So as far as that's concerned, the accuracy and precision of this radio is testing to be dead accurate, which is pretty impressive. There's some other radios on the market that are kind of off by just a couple points, but it's usually just a fraction of a hair, which wouldn't even be noticeable for the average user. The standard features that includes in the radio has endpoint adjustments, trim settings, sub-trim settings. It has exponential rates. It has speed rates for both the steering and the throttle. It also includes some channel reversing and anti-lock brake systems. In the system settings, it also includes, like I already discussed, the backlight brightness control, which you can also set for the duration for it to turn off. By default, I don't know if you see here, it's staying on all the time. You can set it for 10 seconds turn off, 30 seconds, or always on. Perhaps it might be a good idea to set it so that way it does turn off after maybe 10 or 30 seconds, so that way you can help save your battery power. All I've got left to cover now are the misses with this radio. What are the things that are kind of disappointing for me? I know it's hard to expect a lot for a budget radio, but there are other brands of radios that are budget priced, about around the same price that I paid for this one on the market, that offer other better features. So this radio is a 9 model memory radio. They advertise that it's a 10 model memory, and that is not true. It only goes numbers from 01 through 09, and it's only numbered models, so you can't actually provide any character text-based names. Another problem that I have is in order to change the model names, you have to go deep into the system menu. It's a lot of button presses to get all the way down in there to finally change your model and to get all the way back, and it's really unfortunate that it's set up that way. Let's see. Oh, here's another kind of funny thing. When I was testing it, channel 1 and channel 2 are reversed. So on the screen here it has steering and throttle, and it shows steering at the top, which you would think the steering would be channel 1. Unfortunately, channel 1 is actually set up for the throttle, and channel 2 is the steering. So that's pretty non-standard. There's no support for high voltage, there's no integrated gyro, there's no telemetry, there's no channel mixing. There's no charge port, there's no DSC port, and I think this white case will be prone to fading and maybe possibly turning yellow over time and getting stained. So of all those features, I don't know. I'm going to have to evaluate this radio some more and see what I think about it, and I'll go from there. Sorry for this video being so long, but there's a lot to discuss about it, and we'll see how it goes. I'll continue evaluating and see if I would recommend it later. Thanks for watching.